And, when I've been looking through your work, the one thing that I found really fascinating was the fact that, I mean, you shot some of the biggest stars in baseball in some of the biggest stadiums in the world. And one of the things I read about you is that you take out the time to really go and shoot grassroots baseball games, like street baseball. So I find it really fascinating how you managed to really combine all of that and have the passion really for the sport, even at a grassroots level.
Yeah, well, you'll appreciate this as a photographer, right? You have photographers who I also teach photography, sports photography. And so many times you get the question of, how do I get a credential to get into a major league stadium? How do I get to, and everybody's goal is to shoot at this high level, right? To shoot at the World Series, to shoot at the Olympics. And sure, that's thrilling and exciting, but pictures can be made anywhere. And in many cases, better pictures can be made in places that are not these big stadiums where you don't have access and you're told to stand in this little box behind this rope and you can't move. And not that that's not exhilarating, but I feel like if we can let it go as photographers and not worry about the who, but worry about the what, you can just make such beautiful pictures, and taking these grassroots subjects in whatever sport you might be shooting, soccer or, just cricket. What do you guys play over there?
Yeah, cricket. Cricket.
Yeah. People who have patience for cricket, then baseball is nothing. So, right. Those games could go on. But whatever the game is, when you can shoot it at a 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. start, right, with pretty light, and you have a beautiful background and you have access for angles, then you make pictures. And to me, when I shoot my grassroots work and I shoot these kids, I shoot them like they're major leaguers, like they're the big stars, giving them, with the same equipment, with the same care, with the same planning, and with angles that make them look big and heroic. And it's so rewarding, on every level, and especially as a photographer, making pretty pictures.
And, I love that concept. I do a similar thing in music photography. So, usually it's very similar, when it comes to music photography, people often think like, oh, I want to shoot at, the O2 Arena or, at the Royal Albert Hall. And I want to shoot like the biggest names in the business sort of a thing. And that is cool. Don't get me wrong. I've shot at the Albert Hall many times, and I've recently had the opportunity to shoot the O2 Arena with my friend David Bergman, which was a phenomenal experience. But I also love that even more. I shoot young bands at it's called a Battle of the Bands competition. And what I do is there's about 10 bands that take part in this. It happens every year. But what I do is I make a point in doing a full professional photo shoot with each one of those bands. And they might be as young as 13 or something, right? Some of them might be even younger. They might be stuff from 11, between 11 and 18, let's say. So the idea is basically, on one hand, nobody should go home empty-handed, even if they don't win the competition. But also, it's extremely empowering for those young kids to have like really awesome professional images that they can then use, on their social media, and it just gives them maybe even more impetus and more energy to carry on making music. That's the thing. So I completely, identify with that, that joy of shooting grassroots.
Yeah, to me, that makes so much sense. But your point of, for sure, like whoever's shooting music, don't worry about the who, worry about the what. I mean, think about what you could do if you're with a young band. You get the access. Maybe you can even stand on the stage and get some close up or get some angle. He's building a portfolio, building relationships, learning, and making just terrific pictures. You're certainly not going to do that at Yankee Stadium. And it's such a lesson.
Yeah, that's it. And you're absolutely right. What you said earlier about getting access and getting close to, the performers or the athletes. You're absolutely right. Like in a small venue, if you just, relate that to music photography again, in a small venue, you can get really up and close, to the performers and stage. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.